Good day to you, Miss Lee, and welcome to our Group Project Part 2's presentation. I, Jaden, will be presenting the first slide. Now, what you see here is a template of the past reflections we had with our interviewees and the diversity challenges they faced. Going back a little, Clarissa's interviewee faced microaggressions on race and body shaming. Simran's interviewee faced gender discrimination. Qi Xiang's interviewee faced microaggressions and got stereotyped based on race. Li Zhe's interviewee faced gender discrimination, body shaming, and ageism. My interviewee faced ageism and racial discrimination. Last but not least, Iman's interviewee faced stereotypes and racial discrimination. Looking at all this, you can tell that everyone in the workforce faces discrimination. But just how common are they as a whole? Let's see that in the next slide, where we will organize our diversity challenges faced by our interviewees into a pie chart. Moving on, this is a pie chart of the challenges faced by our group's interviewees. As shown, the number of overlapping discrimination faced by our interviewees are the same, and thus, we have to resort to other ways of selecting a challenge. After discussing, we have unanimously decided to select gender discrimination since it also aligns with our Group Project Part 1's company, Marriott International, which also has gender discrimination as one of their focusing points in their DE&I strategy. To this day, gender discrimination is especially prominent in Singapore. Though it has gotten better over the last few years, there are still recent incidents relating to gender discrimination. An example of this would be a recent article I've read, where it states that 40% of women are discriminated at work who as compared to men, who consist of 10%. That's 4 times the amount of men, highlighting the gender bias towards women in the workforce. Now, of this 40%, only 12% made reports of the incident, all of whom are female by the way, as they could be facing much worse discrimination than men. And only 6% of them have seen satisfactory results, which could also be taken that not many employers take them seriously, as they are women. This poses a big problem for the women in Singapore, and this also highlights how important it is to have a strategy to tackle this gender discrimination.
Now, I'll be talking a bit about the strategy that we have chosen. The D&I strategy that we have come to adopt would be to increase the total employee count in Company X to 300, with at least 50% of them will be female, and increase the women's representation in leadership and management positions by 10% before 2025. Now, this will be done through 3 following initiatives, the first being anonymizing applications and diversifying interviewers. Now, by anonymizing applications, the interviewers would not have the chance to be gender biased towards any person. And diversifying the interviewers would provide a higher job offer acceptance rate for women, which helps the goal that we want to achieve with this strategy. Not to mention, unconscious bias would decrease as well. Moving on to the next initiative would be to have weekly accept awareness classes. By having employees consult each other on gender bias in the workplace, more employees would be conscious of their actions and hence help to passively reduce the amount of gender bias in the workplace. This would also help to influence less informed employees on the awareness of gender bias in the workplace. Moving on to the last but not least, by having mentorship programs for women. This will give more opportunities for women to participate in big projects. Not only would this help women gain more experience, it would also help increase the women's representation in leadership and management positions, hence helping our goal by 2025. Now, moving on to our group's proposed initiatives, with the first being to have weekly awareness classes at the end of each week. Now, the awareness class would only be about 30 minutes to an hour and attended by every available employee. Throughout the week, employees will learn about the biases and stereotypes in the workplace. During the class, the employees will speak on the relating gender bias subject. And by consulting each employee on the consequence of such gender bias in the workplace, the guilty party could reflect on their actions in private. The classes can passively help to reduce the amount of gender bias in the workplace as well, by influencing the employees on the awareness of gender bias in the workplace. Employees would be more conscious of their actions and refrain from gender biasing, hence overall improving the company culture and its inclusion of gender equality. Now, a company that adopted a similar inclusion training would be Kimberly-Clark, where they deployed an enterprise-wide inclusion training that resulted in more women in leadership roles at director level and above.
Our next initiative is anonymizing applications and diversifying interviewers. Gender bias in recruitment is the inclination to favor a candidate due to gender prejudice. This is mainly due to confirmation and affinity bias. Confirmation bias refers to the tendency to draw conclusions based on your own beliefs and prejudice instead of unbiased facts or data. Affinity bias or similarity bias is the likelihood that people tend to connect with others with similar interests, experiences, or backgrounds. This is a huge issue in hiring and affects the recruitment process. If the right precautions are not implemented, employers and hiring teams are at risk of discrimination and gender inequality. Anonymizing applications will allow employers to evaluate each application in exactly the same way without being influenced by their gender. The identity of those applying will be hidden and only the qualifications and work experience would be visible to the employers. This helps the employers to score candidates objectively as it removes all confirmation and affinity bias the employers might have. In the interviewing process, there should also be more diverse interviewers. This would help to reduce conformity bias as the interviewers would be better able to express their opinions on candidates more objectively, as there is lesser peer pressure and the group won't echo the same thoughts as the majority. Similar initiatives has also been proven effective in the past. An example would be the implementation of anonymous evaluation among symphony orchestras in the United States, and data showed that the percentage of women in the top 5 US orchestras increased from 5% in 1970 to 25% in the 1990s.
Another initiative that we would like to propose is to help more women to hold leadership positions in the company through mentorship programs. This process can be done by scheduling meetings between mentors and mentees in person or remotely through phone and video chats on a weekly basis. The main goal of this program is to ensure that less experienced women learn from more experienced women who already hold leadership positions in the company. The female leaders based in Singapore will mentor the female staff in Singapore, while the female leaders based overseas will mentor the overseas female staff. This allows women to have access to opportunities that they wouldn't have had without the mentor's help. When it comes to professional development, mentoring has been shown to be one of the most effective ways for people who are new or just starting out to get ahead. It's been found to make a significant difference in the lives of mentees, helping them discover and develop their talent and potential. Therefore, mentorship programs have been proven to be effective in accelerating the career of women in leadership and are a valuable source for women to climb up the corporate ladder. A good example of this initiative would be the company Marriott International Incorporated. They started their Women's Leadership Development Initiative since 1999 to focus on leadership development, networking, and mentoring. They concentrated these efforts on developing and building a strong pipeline of future women leaders by providing greater opportunities and forums for women in their company to network and build mentoring relationships. Additionally, all women's leadership events at Marriott have been executed to incorporate these key areas of focus for women leaders. Through these efforts, Marriott was able to achieve impressive results. Marriott's total workforce comprises of 54% women. Women also hold significant leadership and policy-making positions across their company and represent 50% of their CEO's direct reports.
Levels of inclusion at which D&I initiatives are carried out in the company. The D&I metric we decided to use is percentage of women out of total workforce representation and percentage of women out of total senior leadership representation. Why this metric? Well, we feel that this metric works well with our D&I strategy as measuring the increase in women representation and the company demographics will allow us to accurately measure how well the initiatives are working. The representation data will also show us which initiatives are effective and which initiatives need improvement. In my research, I found that Amazon used a similar metric. Amazon aimed to track the representation of women and underrepresented communities to measure how effective their initiatives were. The data they collected over the years clearly showed how their employee demographic has changed. This data was then analyzed to better understand how effective their initiatives were and if they meet their D&I strategy. As you can see in the picture, it shows a steady increase in the percentage of women in the company over the years, signifying how effective their initiatives are in meeting their D&I strategy. KPMG is a company in the professional services and consulting industry which has up to 66% of hires identifying as males. This was not an accurate representation of KPMG's belief in a company culture that strives for equality. After KPMG implemented their D&I solution, they transformed their recruitment process, achieving a plus 47% in female applicants and a plus 44% in female hires. KPMG found measuring their company's employee representation percentages relevant and effective in measuring how successful their strategy is.
HCL Technologies in India focuses on getting more women into middle and senior management. It uses a similar metric that tracks how many women report directly to the CEO. The Vice President of Human Resources, who heads Diversity and Inclusion, reports the results to the Board of Directors each quarter. This is used to track how successful their leadership initiatives for women have been. Many companies now track workforce composition by gender, race, and age. According to Cindy Oyung, the Vice President of Inclusion, Culture and Change at Charles Schwab, she says it's really important to look at your data to understand what your representation looks like right now and where you might have some opportunities for improvement. Many businesses will look at the composition of their team by diversity of seniority level to see which initiatives need improvement. These major companies have adopted representation as a metric to measure their success of their D&I strategies through their initiatives. Since they have shown great effectiveness in the metrics and they are still using it, it justifies our use of the metrics to meet our D&I strategy.